Hi, my name is Ben Plessier and I am a fervent user of Wappler. This is how I left the previous video. With this video, I would like to add an image. The user procedure is as follows. The Add Image button reveals a modal containing the Add Image form. A highlight of this form is that does not show one of those horrible form file uploads. Notice that the modal Add Image button is disabled. When I click on the Choose an Image button, the behavior is as though I was using a form file upload. When the image is chosen, a thumbnail of the image shows as the preview and the modal Add Image button is enabled. Adding the image places the image on the page. There is also a button next to the image in case the image needs to be changed. The Change Image modal is the same as the Add Image modal, it is only that the wording is different. As you have probably realized by now, I love getting the back-end stuff out of the way before starting on the front end. For this I wander off to the Workflows panel. I will follow the same procedure as I did in video 6 where I added an image for the category. Here I select the Products API folder. In video 6, it was determined that the create and read steps did not have to be touched. These are okay as is. This leaves us with update and delete functions. First up, the Upsert API which contains the update step. But before touching the update step, an adjustment has to be made for the posted image type. This is not a text, but a file type. Now for the update. If there is an image involved, then the file has to be uploaded and the name entered into the database. I go ahead and add a new condition that decides on whether there is an image or not. If there is an image, then the first step is to upload the image. The upload field is the posted file. The destination is a folder called temp. I have chosen a temporary folder so that I can delete the uploaded file as a last step when it is no longer needed. Then I select a few of the options to ensure that we do not run into trouble down the track. After the upload step, I add an exec step. I name it Resize Large. This is to create the large image. The action is the library item that I created in video 5. For the path, I select the path under File Upload. The width, I set to 650. This value can be changed to suit. The destination is the Products folder with a subfolder named, the Product ID. And the name is the Product ID. For the thumbnail, I repeat the process naming the step, Resize Thumbnail. The width is set to 300. The destination is the same as for the large image but with a thumb subfolder. The name is the Product ID. The next step is to enter the name of the image into the database. For this, I copy the current database update and move it into the truthy part of the condition, after the previous step. It is renamed. Then I select the fields that are not required, and delete them. The name of the image is the product ID followed by the WebP extension. The last step for the truthy part of the condition is the removal of the image file that was uploaded. Before I forget, the resize steps are not shown on the front end, therefore I disable the output. Now for the falsy part of the condition. I add an else step and move the original database update into it. For the update options, I remove the image field, this is not required here. Save the file and we are done with the update part. Now for the delete action. When a product is deleted, the images that are related to the product must also be deleted. To avoid an error, we must first determine if the images folder for the product exists. The full path to the folder is entered. It is copied so that it can be used in the delete step. I add the truthy step and inside it, I add the remove folder step. Save the file and we are done. And now for the front end. Remember the modal that has the add image form? And when we want the image to change, the same modal is used. I have used a variable that allows the change in wording. So let me start with adding the variable. After the product data detailed data source, I add the data variable. The variable get the identifiable ID. The value remains empty. The value will be set with the add and change buttons. Before adding a new form, I need to change the form input ID of the delete form. There is only the one instance, so no need to go to the search panel for this. Here I change INP to DEL. Then I add a new modal after the delete modal. I add the ID and a fade effect. Get rid of the paragraph. In its place, I use generators to insert a form. The form server action is performed by the Upsert API. The inputs are populated by the product data detail data source. The form type is set to vertical. Then I remove all of the inputs that are not relevant. All but the image input are set to hidden. The image input is set as file. Time out while I explain the file input. A text input is used to get a single line of text from the user. The value of the text input always shows, even when pre-populated. A file input allows the user to select one or more files from their device storage and upload them to the server. The value shows only when a file or when multiple files are chosen. It will not show the value when pre-populated. Therefore, I remove the populated value. The form gets the usual treatment including the dynamic events. Success message. Data source reload. Hiding the modal. Now, I do want to make use of the file input, but I have always found it to be ugly. I have had occasion to change the style using style rules. However, this has never been a complete success. Lately I have been making grateful use of the label element while hiding the file input. This is because when a user clicks a label, the browser passes the focus to its associated input. With this knowledge, I hide the file input. The only way to do this using Wappler is to go into Code View and adding the hidden property. I then proceed to change the label text. The problem is that the cursor does not show that the label is selectable. To illustrate this, I turn the preview mode on. When I now hover over the label, the cursor does not change, like it does when I hover over a button. To rectify this, I add a role property with a value of button to the label. When I repeat the test, I see that the cursor does change. Working my way down the modal, I change the modal title. The first part is the dynamic value obtained from the variable. Then I delete the close button. There are other ways to hide the modal. Lastly, the buttons in the modal footer get their change of text. With the Add Image button still selected, I go to Dynamic Events. Here I add a mouse on click event. The action is to submit the form. While here, I will disable the button when no image has been selected. To do this, I first disable the button when there is a value in the file input. Then I add the negation operator in Code View. When the modal is hidden, I want the form to be reset. This is so that remnants of a previous attempt do not remain in the form. Now for the image of the selected file. I add a row and column after the Add Image form. Inside the column, I add an image. The image gets a set width. I then scroll down to Dynamic Attributes for the image source. This can be found in the form file input under Files. The attributes found under Files are those that are contained in a header string that is attached to the file. The last one of these attributes is the data URL. In actual fact, this is a temporary path to the image that we can use. And that is it for the Add Image modal. Now for the image section. I select the row containing the Edit and Delete buttons. Then I add a row after it and give it a bit of spacing. Inside the row comes the column with a heading. The heading text is changed and the type is set to an H5. After the heading, comes the Add Image button. The button gets the usual treatment. For the action toggle, I choose the Add Image modal. Then I go down to Dynamic Events to add a mouse on click event. The action is to set the variable to add. In Dynamic Attributes, I hide the button when an image exists. The image has already been added. Once an image has been added, it needs to show after the image heading. I select the heading and add a conditional region. I give the conditional region an ID and set the condition. The condition is, when the image field within the data detail data source has a value. Within the conditional region, I place an image. To assist with the page rendering, I set a width and a height. I also make the image responsive so that it will downsize when the real estate calls for it. Then I scroll down to Dynamic Attributes to add the image source. This is the complete path to the thumbnail image. Oops. I missed this one. Wappler in its usual manner has deleted the /. Please add it now. For me it is too late, I will add it down the track. You may well ask, why a conditional region? If I choose to hide the image when none is selected, the browser will show a 404 error. As you can see, this error does not occur when I place the image in a conditional region. Next comes the button that allows us to change the image. With the image still selected, I add a button after it. I have a tendency to play the violin while applying the usuals to the button. For your sake I will resist, mainly because I do not know how to play. For the action, I choose the Add Image modal. Then I go to Dynamic Events to add a mouse on click event. For the action, I set the value of the variable to change. Lastly, to correct an earlier omission, I add a / to the source of the image. Save the file and we are ready for testing. And that is it for this video. I hope it has been of some use to you and hope to see you for the next video where I will start on the public-facing part of the application. Thank you for watching.